Hi everyone, a freshly brewed pot of single origin here with rhyme signatures, the nerdiest music review this side of being helplessly dependent on tasty dark bean juice in order to start my weekdays. And today we're going to be doing a review of the new self-titled album from Professor Caffeine and the Insecurities. The strongest and most celebrated part of this community, of this ragtag crew of musically inclined people, is our ability to share with each other what we find with enthusiasm and readiness. It's never been easier to throw recommendations at each other, and in truth, the way that I find most of the stuff I review on this channel is from recommendations from you guys. Sure, there's some stuff I discover on my own, but 90% of it is all on you. And I thank everyone who's ever pointed me in the right direction of something from the bottom of this steely British heart. And no one, and I mean no one, is as clued in to what I like quite like Nathan on Shuffle. He has continued to be a source of endless new musical discoveries, and I once again find myself in a position of being humbled and extremely grateful for his pointing out of this wonderful progressive indie rock band, Professor Caffeine and the Insecurities, to my eternally curious ears, as quite frankly, it's a marriage of some of my favourite sounds in prog rock, thrown into a blender and served up over ice on a warm summer's day when I'm really gosh darn thirsty. The quirky title should give you a clue as to the vibe and the mood of the band. This certainly isn't a dreary funeral dirge doom metal band, nor is it a riff-laden, keyboard-driven, classic-style progressive rock or metal band. The closest bedfellows I can think of here are Coheed and Cambria for the vocal style and rock sensibilities, and Thank You Scientist for the jazzy musical phrasing and complex virtuosities. Throw in some of Will Wood's signature quirkiness and sense of humour here and there, and you'll be starting to get an idea of just what Professor Caffeine is starting to look like. Split across Boston, Massachusetts and Providence, Rhode Island, the band consists of Dan Smith on bass and vocals, Derek Tanch on keyboards and piano, Anthony Pugliafico and Jay Driscoll on guitars, and Ken Dellert on drums. And this self-titled offering is their first full-length album, following on from their initial salvo of EPs, including the comic book EP, released in 2015, 1.21 Gigawatts in 2017, and video game EP in 2018. I of course decided to check out their back catalogue in the run-up to completing this review, and I can safely tell you that the band have assuredly earned themselves a very loyal fan. It takes a very special band to make such a positive impact on me from the very first listen, but within only a couple of tracks, I could tell that this album, this band, was something special. There's something delightfully charming about how well they managed to present a reasonably straightforward, emo-y indie rock exterior, but with a depth and complexity only a couple of centimetres under the surface that sings true of their abilities as composers and musicians. I've always felt that some of the best examples of progressive rock are those where the true extent of their technical abilities are hidden behind the mist of familiarity. And what I mean to say by that is that on a surface level, the music is accessible, easy to enjoy, and works to provide a greater than average level of engagement on a casual listen. But the more time you spend with the band, the more you unpack, the more you begin to appreciate just how much is going on a technical level behind the scenes. Which honestly sums up Professor Caffeine to a T. This talented quintet have more in common on face value with bands like Brand New, Taking Back Sunday, or maybe Jimmy Eat World than they do with the titans of prog rock. But it's when you really take the time to jam in some earphones, ignore the distractions of the daily grind, and concentrate on the music, you begin to see the underlying complexities of the structures holding everything together. Take the 5-minute instrumental track of Oat Roper, for example. It's got more pedigree and heft to its musicianship than even mighty bands renowned for their technicality like Dream Theater can muster. And it's not completely in your face about it. There's still a degree of reserved control to the measured and exciting passages, as well as clear influence and drive from classical music to be found within. Now, I really appreciate how the band opens the album with Brockton Panda giving us an immediate slam about what kind of progressive emo indie rock they're going for. Dan Smith's vocals will immediately feel comfortable to anyone who's grooved to Claudio Sanchez or Salvatore Morano. There's a slightly nasal, higher pitch to them, which might be off-putting to some, but for people like me who were raised on a diet of Rush and Coheed, it's like being greeted by an old friend. A chorus of children tell us that it's time to start the record, and Wolf Fang Fist explodes into life, giving an immediate sense of what would happen if you crossed Thank You Scientist with The World is a Beautiful Place. The guitars are staccato machine gun bursts against a tapestry of complex drum and bass patterns, and it's an absolute treat for the ears. Dan's vocals continue to keep the foreground sound of the band relatively straightforward, but catching snippets of what lies behind him makes this such a rewarding album to listen to on repeat. This trend continues fantastically over the next few songs of Spirit Bomb, The Spins, and Dope Shades, each managing to explore different facets of the band's style and personality. But there's one thing that becomes obvious to me as I get to grips with the album. The lyricism here is quite different to what you might expect from typical progressive rock. For all of the genre's usual pretensions, we generally expect highbrow topics of conversation and fantastical world building, musings on esoteric thought patterns, etc., etc. Professor Caffeine draws more from its indie and emo roots than it does from its prog rock ones though, with the lyrics feeling grounded in a more contemporary and realistic setting, exploring more human topics that speak to far more relatable themes like the complications of interpersonal relationships and dominance of social media on our emerging personalities. And I know this will be a rude awakening, letting people see the monster dwelling underneath, while your Instagram perfect self-centered portraits never show the truth as long as you keep stacking views. They've done a great job of skirting the line between modern and contemporary lyrics and hitting a little bit too close to the bone, and it results in some genuinely fantastic poetry that speaks to both the younger and elder generations with differing tones depending on your own life experiences and how it lines up to the lyricism. As good as the first half of the album is though, it's the back half, from Unreal Big Fish onwards, where I really start to find myself intoxicated with the album. I've become invested by this point. The band have me wrapped around their little finger, and I'm eager to see what else they can throw at me, and it turns out the answer is honestly quite a lot. Unreal Big Fish contains one of my favourite choruses in recent years, and it has managed to lodge itself quite firmly in my head over the last few days. It's a nice, down-tempo song with a pleasant groove and carries itself with a kind of summer evening vibe. But it's disarmingly attention-grabbing when you listen to the lyrics surrounding the la-di-das of the central theme running throughout. Astronaut embraces some fantastic post-rock atmospheres with some furious tremolo picking in the pre-chorus to make for a song that feels so much bigger than those surrounding it. There's this brilliant sense of build-up and payoff throughout the song that makes it one that I keep coming back to. The layered vocals at the climax are outstanding and a clear highlight of the whole album for me. That's a Chunky is the longest song on the album at just shy of 6 minutes, and the band aren't shy to play with the extra time they've given themselves. And if it were not for the following Oat Roper, I'd be calling this the instrumental standout of the record. As it stands, this is still a phenomenal piece of work and a great showcase for the band's technical talents. But yeah, Oat Roper then kicks in, and frankly all bets are off. This is my current favourite instrumental track of 2024, and I'm completely obsessed with it. The way the band effortlessly flexes these indie, prog, jazz and classical vibes into one cohesive package that never feels like they're overtly showing off is a message for other bands to really pay attention to. Things close out nicely with the final tracks of Make Like a Tree and Leave and Mr. Sleep, providing the right amount of comfy, warming vibes I've come to expect from the band. Dan's vocals really shine on these tracks, giving a great demonstration of his range and versatility, and marking him out as a vocalist whose pipes I've become really attached to. He's got one of these timbres that immediately makes me happy to hear, and while I fully appreciate that it won't be for everybody, I'm personally a big fan. The whole album clocks in at just shy of 50 minutes, and honestly I think it's just about the perfect length for this kind of music. Long enough that it gives the band a chance to flex their musicianship and leave a lasting impression on the progressive rock landscape, but not so long that they outstay their welcome. It is always refreshing to see a band like this exercise restraint and keep their debut album to a manageable length. So, what else can I say about the self-titled debut LP from Professor Caffeine and the Insecurities? This album really did come out of nowhere like a precision shot and knocked me on my ass. It's been filling in that gap that I've been craving in the absence of new material from Thank You Scientist, as well as giving me that more hard rock edge that Coheed and Cambria satisfies. And while I wouldn't say they're a better jazz troupe than The Scientist or a better rock outfit than Coheed, the fact that they managed to expertly place themselves in between them more than makes this a band worth your time and investment. My favourite part of doing this channel is coming across bands like this, and then getting some exposure to them through my admittedly limited reach. But every one extra listener this band picks up is one little step towards bigger recognition for them, which I sincerely hope I can at least do something to help build for them. Now, I'm not sure if the record is available in physical format yet, but I will be wanting and hoping to grab it on vinyl at some point in the future. I think the Professor has an exciting career ahead of them, and I really do hope I'll be able to support them however I can as they grow. This, guys, is all, of course, just my opinion, so if you have listened to this debut album by Professor Caffeine and the Insecurities, please tell me what you thought of it in the comments down below. If you did like this video, please do give it a thumb, please do share it around with anyone else who you think would possibly enjoy it, and as always, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I'll be leaving my link tree down below where you'll find all the various places to find me on social media, so please do drop me a follow if you want to see more about my exciting daily life and adventures outside of the YouTube space. But until next time, guys, as always, keep your rhyme signatures reasonably odd.